Recording started.
Good. What an exciting chapter.
Many things have occurred.
Yeah. Where was this conversation in the not great chapter?
Well, it had to be the not great chapter, so part of our criticism.
Yeah. So what I'm referring to is there was a chapter a while back between Elend and the crew, and it was one of those very repetitive moments without actually digging deeper into the characters. And
Yes.
this chapter, they get deeper into it. Now, granted, this chapter is between Elend and Vin rather than Elend and the crew, but I still think there's a strong argument to be made that if you divvied up Vin's points that she makes in this chapter among the crew and had that conversation then, nothing of value would have been lost from the old version of that chapter, and it would have given Vin and Elend more opportunity to dig even deeper with regard to the Straff stuff I'm talking about. Everything else in the conversation about dressing, that was really
that was
wonderful.
great.
Elend is just hitting all of the beats that I would want him to hit. Like, so sometimes I do this weird thing when I'm watching media or reading a book. There is what the characters say, and then there's what I think they want, and therefore what I think they should say to be getting what they want. If you're with me so far, if that makes sense.
Yes, I'm with you.
Great. And Elend, time and time again, says the things that I think he has to say for Vin. Now, there's sort of a strange element here where just because a person hears the things they need to hear doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take it the way they need to take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm still very concerned for rocky roads ahead, especially because of Zane. But god damn, Elend is just knocking it out of the park.
He's doing it right. Yeah, he really is. Vin's just not in the right place to hear it properly. It doesn't seem like. But hopefully, at some point, she remembers it.
No, I see. Forgive me if I gave the wrong impression. I think she takes it very well here. And I think she's going to internalize it, and it's going to take a little bit of time and work. And of course, there are other factors at play. But the culmination of her arc, I think, is going to lean toward the positive because Elend is so masterful at opening the psychological pathways toward her making optimal and healthy choices.
Yeah, but she's going to what I'm referring to is, like you said, there's rocky roads ahead. In that, like, sure, she's got that, but she's got to still work with the other stuff that she's been showing us. Obviously, she hasn't been showing it to Elend.
Right. Okay, I see. We've talked a bit about Straff and how I have concerns that he's a little bit of a mustache twirler, sort of a caricature of a villain. Did you get any of that in this chapter?
No, I still am not in this mustache twirler thing. I think maybe it's because I don't know. I'm just fascinated with him. He is bad. That's it, and I'm just there, looking at how bad he is. So it's not making me cringe, is what I mean.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm undecided, more or less, if this chapter is more of the mustache twirler or more of the genuinely intimidating. He seems to be effectively manipulated this chapter.
Yes.
We did think that Elend would do well in his meeting with Straff.
Yeah, we knew he wouldn't be like absolutely brilliant and confident from the thing. We knew we would have to be in his mind and have him thinking through things.
Yeah.
That's just, I can't wait to get to that point as well, because he trusts Vin, just trusts Vin's instincts. So good.
I was gonna say he rides it, and it is great. And granted, the meeting's not done. There's still time to mess stuff up, speaking of which, we're going to do a blind of the next chapter. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
And then we've got Elend making some incremental gains with the crew. We'll get to that when we get to it, because I have some stuff to say there.
Front loading. Come in. What? No, finished.
Front loaded. Now, Hite very generously offered to do this intro as Spook.
Okay, that's funny fun.
Hello and welcome. Oh, right. I have to do it as Spook too now, don't I? Shit. Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. For this particular series, I am joined by my wonderful co-host, that darn Kitty.
Dorkus and I are both going into the story completely new with almost no knowledge of the story or world.
Each segment, we intend to cover what happens in each new chapter and discuss our experience along the way.
Hold on to your butts, because this is Ascension Unleashed, a blind read-through, and today we'll be covering Chapter 26.
Chapter 26? Terrible.
Love it.
He was forced into war by a misunderstanding, and always claimed he was no warrior. Yet he came to fight as well as any man.
Ooh.
Direct parallels to Elend, certainly.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, not exactly right now this literal warrior, but this is him, doing his thing, doing his part.
Indeed. Now, this whole he was forced into a war by a misunderstanding thing, do you think the misunderstanding that he is referring to in this passage is that Alendi is the hero of ages? Is that the misunderstanding? Or is he referring to someone accidentally offended someone else and then boom, war?
Yeah, I feel like it should be the first one. It should be the misunderstanding that he's the hero of ages. But I feel like it should have been instead of by a misunderstanding. Considering the way that Kwan has been writing, it should be by my misunderstanding or something like that. Or
that's true.
But a misunderstanding does lend itself to somebody offended somebody. The second one.
Yeah, if we pretend for a moment that this is referring to, say, Alendi's defense of, what was it, Summerhill? Bunker Hill? Summerhill, right? So let's, like, if he happened to become the hero of that day, unintentionally, that would be a misunderstanding. You are, I think, spot on here that Kwan would have written my misunderstanding if he meant that
big one.
The big one, yeah.
Yeah. Even if it was not my, or it could be like our, that he doesn't have to be in his feelings about it. But yeah, that misunderstanding is a bit fragmented, I'm saying, like it makes it feel like there's just an occurrence over there. So
yeah,
just tell us the story.
This is not a good idea, mistress. Orosor sat on his haunches, watching Vin unpack a large flat box. We forgot to front load the Vinasaur.
We did, but would you like to do that now?
No, we'll go through it.
Ellen thinks it's the only way,
she said, pulling off the top of the box. The luxurious blue dress lay wrapped within. She pulled it out, noting its comparatively light weight. She walked over to the changing screen and began to disrobe. And the assault on the walls yesterday?
That was a warning,
she said, continuing to unbutton her shirt.
Not a serious attack.
Though apparently it had really unsettled the assembly. Perhaps that had been the point. Clubs could say all he wished about strategy and testing the walls, but from Vin's standpoint, the thing Straff had gained most was more chaos inside Luthadel. Oh man, it's just coming back in waves now. What I forgot to front load. This is the Dogosaur is definitely the imposter chapter.
Okay, look, I just need the confirmation, but I want to hear what I was looking out for, what Dogosaur is doing here, according to, like, how does this help Straff? How does this help Set?
Well, no, I don't think much of this, what he's doing in this chapter, helps Straff, but I think there are some key reveals. I'll call them out when we get there.
Okay.
And, well, yeah, we'll call it out when we get there.
Well, all I mean is that I was just looking out for that. I was looking out for those kinds of things, and clearly I've missed them. I don't know, or I've forgotten them.
Only a few weeks of being besieged, and the city was already strained near to breaking. Food was terribly expensive, and Elend had been forced to open the city stockpiles. The people were on edge. Some few thought the attack had been a victory for Luthadel, taking it as a good sign that the army had been repelled. Most were simply more scared than they had been before. But again, Vin was left with a conundrum. How to react facing such an overpowering force? Cower, or try to continue with life? Straff had tested the walls, true, but he had maintained the larger part of his army back and in position should Set have tried to make an opportunistic attack at that time. He'd wanted information, and he'd wanted to intimidate the city. I still don't know if this meeting is a good idea. The attack aside, Straff is not a man to be trusted. Kelsier had me study all the major noblemen in the city when I was preparing to become Lord Renault. Straff is deceitful and harsh, even for a human. So...
yeah. That's one?
Yes, so that's one. First off, who would know better than Straff's own Khandra what kind of man Straff is?
Yeah, and how he treats people even for a human.
Yes.
He's one of the bad humans. Yes, that's what, yeah.
Exactly. He's one of the bad masters. And I think Dogisur has been coming around, and I think he doesn't want to go because he thinks he might be forced to reveal himself or something to that effect.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, this sort of stuff doesn't show us, like, oh, does this help Straff? Does this help whatever? It actually is more about how he feels towards Straff that is revealed to us. Because I was looking out for that. Like, oh, is he trying to get an angle or whatever? But it's more like, no, he just doesn't want to go there. And it would complicate things. But is he sufficiently, Dorkus, is he sufficiently swayed? Is he on Vin's side? Is this an indicator that he's on Vin's side now? We know he's the imposter. We've decided.
I think he's at a point where he is doing, in earnest, all he can to help Vin. I don't know if he is fully on board yet with actively breaking his contract.
Yeah.
But I think we're building to that point.
Yeah. His lack for her, his approach to her has really been such a great part of the story. Their relationship building has been really great.
It's probably my favorite part of this book so far.
Yeah, actually, I would say that too. I mean, look, enjoying Elend, what he's doing and things like that. And all of the character work is great. But this friendship and whatever, however it turns out, has been one of the best elements.
Yes, and we haven't even gotten to the smoking gun yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good.
Vin sighed, removing her trousers, then pulled on the dress's slip. It wasn't as tight as some, and gave her a lot of room to move through the thigh and legs.
Good so far.
Orasur's objection was logical. One of the first things she had learned on the street was to avoid situations where it was difficult to flee. Her every instinct rebelled at the idea of walking into Straff's camp. But Elend had made a decision, and Vin understood that she needed to support him. In fact, she was even coming to agree with the move. Straff wanted to intimidate the entire city, but he really wasn't as threatening as he thought. Not as long as he had to worry about Set. I like that she's coming around to Elend's way of seeing things, because I hope that will cement or solidify in her Elend's POV, because we've got Zane pressuring her to give in to her instincts and go out and kill. And we know that Vin, on sort of a surface level, believes in Elend and Elend's vision and Elend's way of doing things. But I don't think she yet truly trusts deep down that it will work and be effective. So if she's starting to come around on this, she might be able to come around on the rest of it.
Yeah, and her taking his point of view and considering it herself and learning from it, not just doing what Ellen says, because that's what Zane wants her to think that she's doing. Her actually learning from Ellen is the mature, healthy thing, making her realize, okay, my past way of thinking, of just my instincts of just, go and kill, those are not necessary right at this point. I'm in a different situation. I can think differently.
Yeah.
So that comes with the maturity, and yay, Ellen. But I also, sorry, just a question. Did you expect at this point? Did you expect Zane was going to show up in this chapter?
I thought he might be around, not necessarily speaking and acting during the Straff meeting, but I did expect him to make some sort of appearance. I was surprised.
Well, I thought, I think the meeting's not over yet. So I was thinking that at this event, he would feature at some point. So I'm surprised he hasn't already. So that's what I thought, he would feature at some point.
What are the odds Zane's going to come up to Vin and be like, hey, let me show you around our war camp? And he's going to try to impress her by how much he inspires fear in the soldiers.
Because Vin goes out now, but she wouldn't. The thing is, she would not move around.
I think she would try and stay and listen in.
Yeah, she would not. Yeah, she would not leave him.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
Vin had had enough intimidation in her life. In a way, Straff's attack on the walls left her with an increased determination to manipulate him to their own ends. Going into his camp seemed a bit crazy on first impression, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that it was the only way they were going to get to Straff. He had to see them as weak, had to feel that his bullying tactics had worked. That was the only way they would win. That meant doing something she didn't like. It meant being surrounded, entering the enemy's den. If Elend did manage to get out of the camp safely, it would provide a large morale boost for the city. Beyond that, it would make Ham and the rest of the crew more confident in Elend. Nobody would have questioned the idea of Kelsier entering an enemy camp to negotiate. In fact, they probably would have expected him to come back from the negotiations having convinced Straff to surrender.
How did you feel about that? Yeah, I agree. But also just remember, the thing is, Kelsier was Kelsier. He's a Mistborn. It's completely unfair, I would say, to expect Elend to be able to do anything. Character-wise, cool. We can talk about confidence and manipulation and things like that. But Kelsier, let's remember, he is Mistborn. Okay, Vin could go into the camp by herself. Okay, I guess that is, of course, a factor, and it's what Elend has pondered before. It's like, can't I at least just be a misting of some sort, that sort of thing. But yeah, I do. I agree with the sentiment, and I think of Kelsier as just being this. He's so cocky, Kelsier, that he would do something like that. I mean, we've seen him do such things. But I guess does that show that Vin has doubted the crew? I guess we have ourselves has doubted the crew's trust in Elend and confidence in Elend. She's looking for it. Yeah, I guess we have.
I think so, but they were flailing for the longest time. And Elend is only recently changing, so
I feel like he's doing better than Vin even realizes yet.
I agree.
Yeah, I just need to make sure he comes back out safely.
Vin thought, getting into the dress.
Straff can display all the muscle he wants. None of it will matter if we're the ones directing his attacks.
She nodded to herself, smoothing her dress. Then she walked out from behind the changing screen and studied herself in the mirror. Though the dressmaker had obviously sewn it to retain a traditional form, it didn't have a completely triangular bell shape, but instead fell a bit straighter down along her thighs. It was cut open near the shoulders, though it had tight sleeves and open cuffs, and the waist bent with her and gave her a good range of motion. Vin stretched a bit, jumping, twisting. She was surprised at how light the dress felt and how well she moved in it. Of course, any skirt would hardly be ideal for fighting, but this one would be an enormous improvement over the bulky creations she had worn to the parties a year before.
Well?
She asked, spinning. Orisur raised a canine eyebrow. What?
What do you think?
Orisur cocked his head. Why ask me?
Because I care what you think.
Ooh, mine says because I care about your opinions, but I love it. She's still making overtures.
I do. It's they're so cute.
She's just going out of her way to be nice to him. How can you not like that?
Yeah, but she's decided that. It's not like it's not difficult. It was difficult in the beginning, but it seems natural now.
Yeah.
Well,
What?
what do you think?
Why ask me?
Because I care what you think.
The dress is very nice, mistress. Though to be honest, I have always found the garments to be a little ridiculous. All of that cloth and color doesn't seem very practical. See,
Yes.
that is such a Vin answer.
Yeah. That's what Vin thought the first time she was in a dress or looking at a dress. So
Yep. All of that cloth and color doesn't seem very practical.
Yes, I know.
Vin said, using a pair of sapphire barrettes to pin her hair back a bit from her face.
But, well, I'd forgotten how much fun these things could be to wear.
I fail to see why that would be, mistress.
That's because you're a man.
I'm a Khandra.
But you're a boy, Khandra.
Ooh, mine says, but you're a male Khandra.
He's a boy, Khandra.
He's a boy Khandra.
Look, I mean, she did say he was a man before. No, she's a boy Khandra. She's, yeah. I actually love this part of this chapter because it's kind of a feeling.
She's so intuitive.
Yeah.
And I also think man, what Dogasaur must be telling Zane about Vin, it must be, I don't want to say the phrase glowing praise, but I imagine he's going to him and saying, she knows things she shouldn't be able to know. And you mix that with Zane being like, she can sense me when she shouldn't be able to. She's going to have quite a reputation.
Okay, yeah. I'm wondering if, just going into how Oris's, I don't know, we're calling him that, but we don't know. His reports to Zane should be trying to protect her in some way. So doing the bare minimum. That's what I'm expecting, is he does the bare minimum for whoever he reports to. Yeah.
Probably.
Maybe that's the reveal. So are we certain that it's Zane he reports to?
I would assume so because, well, we'll get to the smoking gun.
Okay.
Put an asterisk in this.
Okay.
I fail to see why that would be, mistress.
That's because you're a man.
I'm a Khandra.
But you're a boy, Khandra.
How do you know that? Gender is not easy to tell in my people since our forms are fluid. Vin looked at him, raising an eyebrow.
I can tell.
Then she turned back to her jewelry cabinet. She didn't have much, though the crew had outfitted her with a good sampling of jewelry during her days as Follette. She had given most of it to Ellen to help fund various projects, but she had kept a few of her favorites, as if she'd known that she'd someday find her way back into a dress. That's sweet, and I remember that line. She didn't want to spend Ellen's money because Ellen's money was the kingdom's money.
Yes.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah, she was totally fine with spending Calcia's money. I'm just wearing it this once. This still isn't me. Oh. I'm enjoying the fact that she like her remarks on Orisur being a man. It actually works so well for the later remark that Ellen makes about, well, Ellen thinks about her, and her femininity, because she's like, okay, you don't understand that I enjoy being in this dress because I'm a woman. That's actually kind of what she's saying. And then this is her just being in her femininity a little bit. And then now she says, this still isn't me, which I'm like, no, Vin, it's part of you. It's okay.
Yeah. She snapped on a sapphire bracelet. Like her barrettes, it contained no metal. The gemstones were set into a thick, hard wood that closed with a wooden twist clasp. The only metal on her body would be her coins, her vial of metals, and the single earring kept by Kelsier's suggestion as a bit of metal she could push on in an emergency. Mistress, Orsur said, pulling something out from under her bed with his paw, a sheet of paper. This fell from the box as you were opening it. He grabbed it between two of his surprisingly dexterous paw fingers and held it up for her. That right there is the smoking gun.
Smoking gun. Yeah, I thought so enough. I was wondering which one it was, and then I'm like, oh, yes. He's writing.
He's writing? I mean, we don't know how well he's writing, but we had specifically said in the chapter where Zane pulled out the brick and took the note, maybe it's not Dogosaur, because how would he be able to handle notes and paper and bricks
Mhm.
like that? Well, here we have
Here we are.
Sanderson explicitly stating, yes, he can do these things.
Yep, he can just, yeah, that his body is such that it can do that sort of thing. I love that that's how it's revealed. It's nice and subtle. It's not dun 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 or anything like that. It's just, yay, yes, here's a piece of paper.
Yup.
Mm.
Oh, and there is even still one more Dogosaur thing, but it happens later in the chapter than one would expect. But we'll get to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Vin accepted the paper. Lady Air, I made the chest and bodice extra tight to give support, and cut the skirts so they would resist flaring in case you need to jump. There are slits for metal vials in each of the cuffs, as well as a ripple in the cloth cut to obscure a dagger strapped around each forearm. I hope you find the alterations suitable. Feldu, dressmaker.
I love it.
Yeah. And again, I feel so darn strongly that the only reason this is in the chapter, this set of paragraphs, this letter, is to signal to us that Dogosaur can handle letters.
Yes.
But I'm repeating myself at this point.
Yeah, but no, well, it's true, because we know this is that the dress was going to be altered. We know that, and we're seeing it.
Exactly. We didn't need this to know it was happening, or we could have had it from Vin's POV. Oh, I see he did this. I see he did that. No, it was in here as a letter for this specific reason.
Yeah, exactly. To show us, definitely. It's not clunky, just because it's not like, we didn't need this.
Subtle.
It's not clunky. It's nice. It's subtle. And it's not, oh, we're repeating this in the letter. It's actually, no, it also is a gesture that makes this dressmaker endearing. And also just now the thoughts that Vin has about, Mistborn had clothing like this. It's because remember, one of the favorite things that we have pointed out is this is who you are, Vin, when she gets the mist cloak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now she's getting, actually, and remember, one of the things we also discussed in the first book,
Mistborn dress.
Yeah, she's getting like her first Mistborn dress, number one. But also in the first book, we did discuss. Shit, I've lost it now.
No, sorry.
But anyway, it's got to do with just how we do get into the theme of clothing and what it means about a person and things like that. But this can also be who she is. Oh yes, there we go. I've remembered.
The melding.
Yeah. No, what we did talk about is that there was no mare or anything like that to help Vin learn to be a female.
Oh yeah,
crew member, right? So she also hasn't had a female Mistborn.
Shanna L'Oreal.
Yeah, she hasn't had that. She hasn't had that sort of, propping up, or like, this is how a female Mistborn works around her limitations, because she still has to look like a woman, and and I say has to because of society and things like that. She still functions as a woman in society, but she's got this Mistborn stuff going on. That's Vin hasn't had that. So I just want Vin to integrate this into herself, because it's part of her. If she was still very tomboyish and she hated the dresses and things like that, and she never liked them, it would be a different story. But she actually really did. So integrating this into who she is, she doesn't have to be the limited female with the triangle dress and the bulky skirts and things. She can be her own version of femininity.
Yes. She glanced down, noting the cuffs. They were large and wide, and the way they pointed at the sides made perfect hiding places. Though the sleeves were tight around the upper arms, the forearms were looser, and she could see where the daggers could be strapped. It seems that he has made dresses for Mistborn before.
Probably,
Vin said. She moved over to her dressing mirror to apply a little makeup, and found that several of her makeup pads had dried out.
Guess I haven't done this for a while either.
What time are we leaving, mistress? Vin paused.
Actually, Orisa, I wasn't planning to bring you. I still intend to keep your cover with the other people in the palace, and I think it would look very suspicious for me to bring my pet dog on this particular trip.
Orasur was silent for a moment. Oh, of course. Good luck then, mistress. Vin felt only a tiny stab of disappointment. She'd expected him to object more. So that
Mhm.
was an incredible couple of lines.
Mhm.
I think Orisor is glad that he does not have to go,
Mhm.
because I think Orisor is afraid that his cover will be blown, essentially. He'll be
Yeah.
forced to reveal himself, and I don't think he wants to risk that.
Yeah.
And I think Vin is disappointed because she's putting in all this effort and she's genuinely becoming friends with this Chandra. It's
Mhm. Yeah, she's like,
so well
so
done.
you really weren't even gonna try and come with me? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um,
But yeah, it is another thing, another thought that subtly lets us know. It's another smoking gun thing. It lets us know. Think about this. It's just indicating to us. Think about Horace, what Horace's motivations are here. He's not protesting. Why? Because it works for him.
yes. Vin felt only a tiny stab of disappointment. She'd expected him to object more. She pushed the emotion aside. Why should she fault him? He'd been the one to rightly point out the dangers of going into the camp. Orisor simply lay down, resting head on paws as he watched her continue applying her makeup. Masterful scene.
Mm-hmm.
But Elle, you should at least let us send you in our own carriage. Ellen shook his head, straightening his jacket as he looked in the mirror. That would require sending in a coachman, Ham. Right. Who would be me? One man won't make a difference in getting us out of that camp. And the fewer people I take with me, the fewer people Vin and I have to worry about. Elle, Ellen laid a hand on Ham's shoulder. I appreciate the concern, Ham, but I can do this. If there's one man in this world I can manipulate, it's my father. I'll come out of this with him feeling assured that he has the city in his pocket. All right. Oh, one other thing. Yes? Would you mind calling me Elend instead of Elle? I suppose that one's easy enough to do. Ellen smiled, thankfully. It's not what Tindwell wanted, but it's a start. We'll worry about the Your Majesties later. So I really, really like this tactic that Elend is doing to accomplish what Tindwell wants. I think it would be gauche isn't the right word, but it would be a bit off-putting, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because Elend has a high enough EQ to know how Ham is, and how it would be received just to go in blanket. You're going to call me Your Majesty from now on.
Yeah, that would be. Ham would not enjoy that.
Yeah. So Elend is sort of slow walking him there. And I think that's appropriate. And for a little while, I wasn't sure that Tindwill would approve of the slow walk to get there. But it
Mm.
displays that Elend knows how to deal with individuals.
Yes.
And given that Tindwill was able to be so empathetic and so
Mm.
EQ minded with Vin, I hope she will appreciate this similar thing between Elend and Ham.
Yeah, it's absolutely that's so true. She really can't fault him for it because he's maintaining the relationship. He's looking at the individual, like you said, and even if she does like give him crap for it, I don't think it'll be her heart will be in it.
Yeah.
It's just she just would be just being a hard ass about it. It wouldn't be real. And I do just again approving of Ellen's way to do it. It is an awkward thing to ask someone to stop using a certain nickname that they've been using. That's difficult enough. And
Yep.
he did it hesitantly and whatever, but you kind of both smooth over it. There's an exchange socially. It's like, okay, you've asked nicely, and also it seems like a reasonable request.
Yep.
So we kind of hop over the awkwardness and we laugh and I will do it. Whereas,
Yeah.
like you said, if he said, "Can you call me Your Majesty?" Yes, his hand would be like, "Excuse me, no, not a." Then we would get more of that. Oh, Ham has a problem with authority. It's more like Ham just doesn't find it sensical to
Yeah.
have such things. Masterfully done, Ellen.
Yeah. And where do you go from there? Like if you say, call me Your Majesty, Ham. No. Okay, I
Oh,
guess I have to put you in the stockade then for a bit.
yeah.
Or just I order you as your king to call me Your Majesty. Those
Mhm.
And then that way lies insecurity, even more
Yes.
so.
More stumbling and whatever. I'm thinking, so let's think about the next step, right? Because slow walk,
It's
cool. We both agree.
I
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I wanted to as
Mm.
well. I think the next step will be, hey, Ham, can you call me your majesty in front of people when we're
Yes,
out in public?
absolutely. That is that again. That is the point. Is he's going to do that? I was also thinking, how would I do it? And it's the next reasonable request. Okay, doing it in just randomly again at the same kind of request doesn't make sense, because that's actually the truth. He doesn't really want Ham to call him his majesty for that reason, for himself. It's for other people. I believe that, okay, he'll ask for it in front of other people, and that's reasonable, and that will make, and he will comply. Okay, but then it will actually become a habit and happen in private too. That's what I'm expecting and or hoping.
Yeah, especially as Ham
Yeah.
comes to earn. I mean,
Mhm.
I think Ham already respects Ellen, but
Yeah.
like as Ellen comes to be worthy of that respect more and more.
Yeah, I think it's also, look, it's not like you've said, he actually does respect Ellen. So it's not that he's been unwilling to give him these respectful titles and things. It just doesn't matter to him. So it's important for just Ellen has to request these things. That's all. It's just asking him, because it's not natural for him. That's all. And
Yeah.
that's what we do when we have a social relationship. It's just having common courtesy. It's part of being relating to other humans. I love the intricacy of it. It's great.
Yeah. The door opened and Doxson walked in. Ellen, this arrived for you. He held up a sheet of paper. From the assembly? Doxson nodded. They're not happy about you missing the meeting this evening. Well, I can't change the appointment with Straff merely because they want to meet a day early. Tell them I'll visit when I get back. So, did you go conspiracy brained there and think they wanted to meet a day early to make it look like I continue to dodge these meetings and therefore rouse discontent?
I didn't get conspiracy brain, but I did right now think, oh, we didn't comment on what's happening with the assembly yet, but now we could. It's a good time to.
I'll more or less restate an issue I briefly mentioned in the last chapter in more depth. When I said I wanted more politicking in this book, or at least sort of kind of wanted a bit more, I really would have liked one more assembly scene thus far in the book. I think that would have been nice, because that's just simmering. And now we've had just several scenes in which Doxson comes in and says, the assembly is not happy with you right now, Ellen. I would love more than that. Have Doxson say something like, well, Lord Penrod is saying this, and Lord
Yeah.
Ashmount is saying this. Give me something.
Yeah, to chew on, because it's building. We understand that the assembly is boiling over there. Okay, we know that's going to be an issue, but give us some little details to a barometer. Let us give us those little points, comments, because you can do it. We know you can.
Yeah.
Just little subtle comments that make us go, ooh, what's happening with that? So that there's no need for this big dump of exposition when we get back to it.
Yeah. It's the iceberg theory that Brandon Sanderson teaches about in his lectures. He's like, you don't have to have the entire underwater portion of the iceberg built, but you have to make it seem like it's built. So anyway.
Yeah, but no, I would have also appreciated like the mention of a certain lord or lady or something, like some sort of angle that they might be going for. And yeah, Ellen can dismiss it absolutely and not think about it ever. It's fine. It makes sense. But for us, for the politicking kind of feel.
Yeah. I kind of feel like they're building to a coup. I think there's going to be a coup.
Yeah, there's some. Well, either way, whether it's a full-on coup or it's Ellen, what it mostly is doing is Ellen has to deal with this. This is not going to go away. And I do feel like Ellen he's not thinking too much about the possibilities, and he's not thinking too much about how he's going to deal with this. I understand he's focused on Straff, but the lack of his thought about it is adding to that sense of it's boiling over. It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great because look, the setup's going to pay off. I'm sure it will.
Yep. Well, I can't change the appointment with Straff merely because they want to meet a day early. Tell them I'll visit when I get back. Dachshund nodded, then turned as a rustling sounded from behind him. He stepped to the side, a strange look on his face as Vin walked up to the doorway. And she was wearing a dress, a beautiful blue gown that was sleeker than the common courtly fare. Her black hair sparkled with a pair of sapphire barrettes, and she seemed different, more feminine, or rather more confident in her femininity.
Woo! See, that was the line. That was the line I was excited about.
Yay! How much she's changed since I first met her, Ellen thought, smiling. Almost 2 years had passed. Then she had been a youth, albeit one with the life experiences of someone far older. Now she was a woman, a very dangerous woman, but one who looked up at him with eyes that were still a bit uncertain, still a bit insecure. Beautiful, Ellen whispered. She smiled. Vin! You're wearing a dress!
Sorry, I love Ham there. It's just like we've got this beautiful moment with those two that look at each other and it's a moment, and then Ham's like, "You're wearing a dress." Yes.
Vin flushed.
What did you expect, Ham? That I would meet with the king of the Northern Dominance in trousers?
Well, actually, yes. So I loved that line because you know darn well, Vin, that if Tindwyl hadn't come in and convinced you to get a dress, you damn well would have gone in trousers.
That's exactly what you were gonna do. So I love that Ham is also like, yeah, absolutely, that's what you were gonna do. So don't try and act like this isn't surprising.
Yeah. Ellen chuckled. Just because you insist on going about everywhere in casual clothing, Ham, doesn't mean that everyone does. Honestly, don't you get tired of those vests? They're easy and simple.
And cold. I'm glad I asked for something with sleeves.
Be thankful for the weather. Every chill you suffer will seem far worse to the men out in those armies. Ellen nodded. Winter had technically started. The weather probably wouldn't get bad enough to be more than a mild discomfort. They rarely got snow in the Central Dominance, but the chill nights certainly wouldn't improve morale.
Something to note here is, do you get the sense, look, I know that in the Wheel of Time, part of the going towards the doom and gloom and the darkness coming to the world is the weather goes crazy for a while. So it's like part of, the idea of, say, now what happens with the deepness? Does the world also get worse? Will this be a bad winter in comparison, or it's just normal winter?
I think it's gonna be a bad winter. Isn't it more interesting if it's a uniquely bad winter?
Yeah, because then even whether it's true or not, you just feel like everything is against you. You like the earth itself is against us, kind of thing. Yeah. Well, let's go. The sooner we get this over with, the better.
Ellen stepped forward, smiling, taking Vin's hand. I appreciate this, Vin. You really do look gorgeous. If we weren't marching off to near certain doom, I'd be tempted to command a ball be held tonight simply for the opportunity to show you off. Vin smiled.
Near certain doom, is that compelling?
Guess I've been spending too much time with the crew. He leaned down to kiss her, but she yelped and jumped back.
It took me the better part of an hour to get this makeup on right. No kissing!
Ellen chuckled as Captain Demure poked his head in the door. Your Majesty, the carriage has arrived. Ellen looked at Vin. She nodded. Let's go. Sitting inside the carriage Straff had sent for them, Ellen could see a solemn group standing on the wall, watching them roll away. The sun was near to setting. He commands us to come in the evening. We'll have to leave when the mists are out. A crafty way of pointing out how much power he has over us. It was his father's way, a move that was similar to the attack on the walls a day before. To Straff, everything was about posturing. Ellen had watched his father at court and had seen him manipulate even obligators. By holding the contract to oversee the Lord Ruler's Atium mine, Straff Venture had played a game even more dangerous than his fellow noblemen. and he had played that game very well. He hadn't factored in Kelsier throwing chaos into the mix, but who had? Since the collapse, Straff had secured the most stable and most powerful kingdom in the final empire. He was a crafty, careful man who knew how to plan for years to get what he wanted, and this was the man Elend had to manipulate. So I think it's very good information for us to know that Straff is the most powerful of the warlords at the time.
Yeah. No, it's all good information. And this is the kind of look that I'm glad we're in Elend's POV, because you see his interpretation of every little thing that Straff does, which is, for me, is what I like about politicking, actually. It's not so much politicking, it's the interpersonal thing, what things mean, what certain actions mean, what is being trying to be, what's the message behind all of these things. So that's what I'm enjoying about being in this POV, and that's the kind of politic thing that I'm interested in.
Yes. And it gets a bit deeper.
Mm-hmm. You look worried,
Vin said. She was across from him in the carriage, sitting in a prim ladylike posture. It was as if donning a dress granted her new habits and mannerisms, or a return to old ones. She'd once been able to act like a noblewoman well enough to fool Elend.
We'll be all right. Straff won't hurt you. Even if things go bad, he won't dare make a martyr of you.
Oh, I'm not worried about my safety. Vin raised an eyebrow.
Because?
Because I have you, Elend said with a smile. You're worth an army, Vin. This didn't seem to console her. I agree, because she thinks she's only good for killing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but she's worth an army. That makes me think, okay, we've got two armies. Because we've got Luthadel army and then her.
Yes, but Elend also notes that it doesn't console her, so he changes his tactic. Yeah,
of course. We don't, this definitely going into the Go Elend kind of EQ thing, where it's like, we don't want her leaning into the I'm just good for killing thing.
Yeah. Come here, he said, scooting over and waving her to the seat beside him. She rose and moved across the carriage, but paused, eyeing him.
Makeup.
I'll be careful. She nodded, sitting and letting him put an arm around her.
Be careful of the hair, too. And your suit coat. Don't get anything on it.
When did you get so fashion conscious?
It's the dress. As soon as I put it on, all of Saza's essence started coming back to me.
I really do like the dress on you. Vin shook her head. What? Elend asked as the carriage bumped, pushing her a bit closer to him. Another perfume, he thought. At least that's one habit she never got out of.
This isn't me, Elend. This dress, these mannerisms, they're a lie.
Elend sat quietly for a moment.
No objections? Everyone else thinks I'm speaking nonsense.
I don't know, Elend said honestly. Changing into my new clothes made me feel different. So what you say makes sense. If wearing dresses feels wrong to you, then you don't have to wear them. I want you to be happy, Vin. Vin smiled, looking up at him. Then she leaned up and kissed him. I thought you said none of that.
From you. I'm Mistborn. We're more precise.
Elend smiled, though he couldn't quite feel jovial, but conversation kept him from fretting. I feel uncomfortable in these clothes sometimes. Everyone expects so much more from me when I wear them. They expect a king.
When I wear a dress, they expect a lady. Then they're disappointed when they find me instead.
Anyone who would feel disappointed to find you is too dense to be of any relevance. I don't want you to be like them, Vin. They're not honest. They don't care. I like you as you are.
Tyndall thinks I can be both. A woman and a Mistborn.
Tyndall is wise. A bit brutal, but wise. You should listen to her.
You just told me you like me how I am.
I do. But I'd like you however you were, Vin. I love you. The question is, how do you like yourself? That gave her pause.
So this is the great part of this chapter for me, or between these two. We literally have the women and Mistborn line straight there, but also I like where you pointed out how Elend is so good at changing tactic and responding and saying the things he needs to say or that need to be heard. The fact that he didn't go straight into just if we go back to, he didn't go straight into objecting. That's a good thing for Vin, because Vin, as soon as you objecting, she's just going to shut down, and she's just going to be like, oh, here's another one. The fact that he paused and she had to go and say no objections, now it makes her think a bit more about this. It's making her pause and not just have automatic thoughts about it, because she's like, wait, what does Ellen think here? She obviously thought Ellen would have the same thought that everybody else did. And now it's making his responses are making her think in a different way. It's so well done. It's so good.
Yeah, and he's listening. He's hearing what she has to say, and he's letting her get it out.
Yeah, and he's saying, hey, if you don't want to wear the dresses, you don't have to wear the dresses. If it feels wrong to you, he's not telling her how she feels either. He's just saying, if it does, then absolutely. And this line of, I'd like you however you live, and I love you. That is something she needs to just keep in her mind, put it in a little box in her head, and put it on a shrine and things like, just remember this, that he loves you. Because she just keeps thinking of, how could he love me? How could he doesn't love me for who I am, actually, even.
Right.
She's very confused.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're not ready to hear the things that you have to hear and that you need to hear in the way you need to hear them, you run the risk of responding very poorly. So the dark Vin pathway is, oh no, Ellen is too good for me.
Yes. And we've had that. We've had hints of that. So it's not like it's, oh, it'll just come up like, no, even Vin, even him, saying these things will help Vin. It's actually, we have that insecurity that he saw as well. That still, that kind of like, am I okay? Do you approve of me? Kind of thing is still there. And then we've seen this mechanism of her going, he's too good for me because he was too patient with me when I was jumpy and paranoid. He was too patient. We've already had that, so that is still a factor. Even him giving her this sort of praise and this sort of understanding leans into the dark Vin, because she's like, no, I don't deserve to be treated well. So good.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Clothing doesn't really change a man, but it changes how others react to him. Tyndall's words. I think the trick is convincing yourself that you deserve the reactions you get. You can wear the court's dresses, Vin, but make them your own. Don't worry that you aren't giving people what they want. Give them who you are, and let that be enough. He paused, smiling. It was for me.
Oh, it's so good.
Yep. She smiled back, then carefully leaned against him.
All right. Enough insecurity for the moment. Let's review. Tell me more about your father's disposition.
He's a perfect imperial noble. Ruthless, clever, and infatuated with power. You remember my experience when I was 13? Vin nodded. Well, father was very fond of ska brothels. I think that he liked how strong he felt by taking a girl while knowing that she would be killed for his passion. He keeps several dozen mistresses from the lesser nobility, and if they don't please him, they get removed. Vin muttered under her breath in response to this. He's the same way with political allies. One didn't ally with House Venture. One agreed to be dominated by House Venture. If you weren't willing to be our slave, then you didn't get to contract with us.
So is these are the points that we are like wanted in a conversation with the crew, or just earlier?
Exactly. There's not too much new information yet. There will be a couple of important paragraphs coming up, but yes, this I think would have slotted in much, much better in the earlier chapter.
Yeah, especially because we did have a lot of fodder. We did have a lot of that repetition. So this would have been preferable to that. It would have been more fun.
Yeah, and it's important to note, again, most of this isn't new information to us, but it is worded differently this time around, as opposed to we've got to make him our ally. Straff is a bully.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not that information can only be revealed once, and that's what the complaint is. It's just no. It's the repetition. The repetition of the information for no use make it useful. That's the thing. We
Yes.
want that's the thing. It's not new information. It's not that useful here, but it's that we want our characters considering these things, and there are comments to be made about all of it.
Yeah, and there's nothing here that he couldn't have said to the crew that he could say to Vin here.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, the experience, he wouldn't have had to say my experience when I was 13, but he could say, oh, Straff, brothels, like that is not something that you would keep private or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Vin nodded.
I've known crew leaders like that.
And how did you survive when they turned an eye towards you?
By acting unimportant, by crawling on the ground when they pass by and never giving them reason to challenge me. Exactly what you're planning to do tonight.
Elend nodded.
Be careful. Don't let Straff think that you're mocking him.
All right.
And don't promise too much. Act like you're trying to seem tough. Let him think he's bullying you into doing what he wants. He'll enjoy that.
So these are suggestions. Again, they sound great coming to Vin, but I don't doubt that Sanderson could have made them sound great coming from Doxson or Ham or Clubs as well.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, oh, Vin. Look, of course, Vin has experience with this, and that's a beat that he is hitting there. But the crew also could have made such comments, and Vin could have added to them. So you could have had all of that together.
And you see how it pushes the story forward a bit more than the previous conversation did.
Yes, it makes. Look, I understand that we would need a refresher at this point. Maybe we would complain about the repetition, but I think then there is a point. Then there is a counter argument to be made that we need this now because a lot has happened.
And he has not yet had this conversation with Finn, so of course they need to have their plans because they're the two going into it.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm just saying, if we were rewriting, if we had slotted this in, whatever, and you would having this again would work.
Yeah, well, not just that, but if we have this conversation slotted in earlier, it allows us to go even deeper in this conversation.
Yes, exactly. We go to the next level. Oh, we said this, and then Vin actually, maybe we don't have Vin's comment about don't make him think you're mocking him, because that's an insight that maybe Vin would know. It would be a nice one for her to give. Yeah, we're trying to rewrite it. It doesn't matter. But the point is, I'm enjoying the moving around, the editing stuff. That it's just interesting to consider. It's not like, oh my God, it's horrible. It's just, no, hey, this would have made it perfect.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. I think a big part of what it is that I'm trying to say is that we're getting a lot of the what they're doing and not enough of the how they're going to do it. But we'll get into a little bit of that later when we do see how they're going to do it. You've had experience with this before, I see.
Too much of it. But you've heard this before.
Elend nodded. They'd planned and replanned this meeting. Now he simply had to do what the crew had taught him. Make Straff think we're weak, imply we'll give him the city, but only if he helps us against Set first. Outside the window, Elend could see that they were approaching Straff's army. So big. Where did Father learn to administrate a force like this? Elend's got this weird thing going on where he seems to both overestimate his father and underestimate his father at the same time. Is that just me?
Yeah, no, it's correct, but it's like he overestimates characteristics of his father, I think. But then when it comes to skills, like or to just practical things, that's where he's underestimating. He absolutely always, and I wouldn't say it's overestimating, he always knows that his father is going to be the worst thing. He will definitely do that. But when it comes to new skills that have been unlocked, that's where he underestimates. He's just like, he didn't consider. I think it's just because he just didn't consider these things.
Right. Because I think all the way back to Elend thinking that his father doesn't read books and just sort of thinks of him as a bully. It's like, well, sure, maybe he's a bully, but you have to be some degree of intelligence to be able to become top dog, which by all accounts
Yeah.
House Venture was.
Yeah, I mean, he has said that his father is smart, ruthless, clever. But I agree. He does think that he leans more on he's just a bully kind of thing
Yeah,
than he's not intelligent. Clever and intelligent could have different
gotcha.
feelings. Yeah.
Elend had hoped perhaps that his father's lack of military experience would translate to a poorly run army. Yet the tents were arranged in a careful pattern, and the soldiers wore neat uniforms. Vin moved over to her window, looking out with avid eyes, showing far more interest than an imperial noblewoman would have dared.
Look,
She said, pointing. What?
obligator.
Elend looked over her shoulder, spotting the former imperial priest, the skin around his eyes tattooed in a wide pattern, directing a line of soldiers outside a tent. So that's it. He's using obligators to administrate.
It makes sense. They'd know how to manage large groups of people.
And how to supply them. Yes, it's a good idea, but it's surprising. It implies that he still needs obligators, and that he's still subject to the Lord Ruler's authority. Most of the other kings threw off the obligators as soon as they could. So that's interesting, because you could make a strong argument that you are the heir to the empire. The empire, the Lord Ruler's empire, took refuge with us. We will carry on their legacy. The Holy Roman Empire, right? Which was neither holy nor Roman. Something to that effect. Anyway, I think it's smarter move than Elend is. I mean, he acknowledges it's a reasonably smart move, but I don't think he's entirely thought through the possible benefits or auxiliary benefits in addition to organization.
Yeah. It's part of just it's a different kind of underestimation of his father. Like he thought that his father's priorities were different. That's
Yeah.
it seems like.
Vin frowned.
I thought you said your father likes being in power.
He does, but he also likes powerful tools. He always keeps a Khandra, and he has a history of associating with dangerous Allomancers. He believes that he can control them, and he probably believes the same thing about obligators. The carriage slowed, then stopped beside a large tent. Straff Venture emerged a moment later. Ellen's father had always been a large man, firm of figure with a commanding posture. The new beard only heightened the effect. He wore a sharp, well-cut suit like the ones he had tried to get Elend to wear as a boy. That was when Elend had begun wearing his clothing disheveled, the buttons undone, the jackets too large, anything to separate him from his father. Elend's defiance had never been meaningful. He had annoyed Straff pulling small stunts and acting foolish when he knew he could get away with it, but none of it had mattered. Not until that final night. Luthadel in flames, the Ska rebellion running out of control, threatening to bring down the entire city. A night of chaos and destruction, Vin trapped somewhere within it. Then Elend had stood up to Straff Venture. I'm not the same boy you pushed around, father. Vin squeezed his arm, and Elend climbed out of the carriage as the coachman opened the door. Straff waited quietly, a strange look on his face as Elend raised a hand to help Vin down. You came. You seem surprised, father. So do you think it's surprise that brought on that strange look?
Yes, definitely. Yes, I do think Straff is surprised that he came. I think that that's a reasonable reaction for him. Were you?
What else did he expect then? Did he expect... I know he wanted a fight, but did he really expect him not to come?
Maybe
When he said he would?
maybe he expected him to be there with more pomp and
People?
circumstance. Yes,
Mhm.
maybe he expected that. So he thought he would come, but he thought he would have more to protect him.
And that does speak to his hubris, his fatal
Mhm.
flaw as
Yep.
a villain.
Mhm.
He does underestimate Elend.
Mhm.
Straff shook his head. I see that you're as big an idiot as ever, boy. You're in my power now. I could have you killed with a bare wave of my hand. He raised his arm as if to do just that. Now's the moment, Elend thought, heart thumping. I've always been in your power, father. You could have had me killed months ago, could have taken my city away at a bare whim. I don't see how my coming here changes anything. Straff hesitated. We came for dinner. I had hoped to give you a chance to meet Vin, and had hoped that we might discuss certain issues of particular import to you. Straff frowned. That's right. Wonder if I have some offer yet to make. You know that the first man to play his hand usually loses. Straff wouldn't pass up an opportunity for gain, even a slim one like Elend represented. He probably figured there was nothing Elend could say that was of real importance, but could he be sure? What did he have to lose? Go and confirm with my chef that there will be 3 for dinner, Straff said to his servant. Elend let out a lightly held breath. And that girl's your Mistborn, then? Elend nodded. Cute little thing. Tell her to stop soothing my emotions. Vin flushed. So, that's a nice little trick there. I was so grossed out because I know Vin looks super young.
Yeah. He's like cute little thing as well. And just, well, also the way he's referring to her as if she's not there is, it's a tactic in itself.
Yeah.
She's an object. It doesn't, it's like, oh, you the carriage, and you brought the carriage kind of thing. It's like, that's also supposed to get under Vin's skin. It's supposed to get under Ellen's skin. I like this kind of maneuvering, this kind of manipulation going on. You got to try and figure out what the person wants you to react to and how you're supposed to react to it if you want to manipulate them. I love that kind of psychological warfare.
Yeah. And I felt pretty early on after reading that was a determinedly caught soothing.
Yes, Vin definitely is doing. I didn't feel like, oh no, he's very good.
Yeah.
Now
I did consider it because he is a Tin Eye, but nevertheless, I thought, no, Vin is too good, though.
Yeah, Vin is insanely good. And also, I don't know if Vin would immediately start soothing him on, like that. I don't know. I don't feel like she would feel out the situation a little bit more before.
Yeah, she'd be more cautious.
She needs more of his emotions because it isn't apparently reading his mind. So she needs to feel out his emotions in order to find out which ones she's going to soothe and which ones she's going to riot. So it doesn't make sense unless she's doing it. She wants to be noticed. I'm really enjoying Straff's. He is being surprised by Ellen's responses. I like this because we've got Straff hesitated, Straff frowned. We've got those kinds of things because there is pause. So there is still. Ellen had to establish that no, I'm still under your power, but I am different. I'm not exactly the same. I can understand your political maneuvering and your manipulation a little bit more. I'm a little bit smarter because I've got other people around me, but I'm also still under your power. Don't worry, Dad. You're the king.
Yeah. Vin flushed. Straff nodded toward the tent. Elend led Vin forward, though she glanced over her shoulder, obviously not liking the idea of exposing her back to Straff. Bit late for that, Elend thought. The tent chamber was what Elend would have expected of his father, stuffed with pillows and rich furniture, very little of which Straff would actually use. Straff furnished to suggest his power. Like the massive keeps of Luthadel, a nobleman's surroundings were an expression of how important he was. Vin waited quietly, tensely, at Elend's side in the center of the room.
He's good. I was as subtle as I can manage, and he still noticed my touch.
Elend nodded. He's also a Tin Eye, he said in a normal voice, so he's probably listening to us right now. And at that point, I'm like, this is an act. This is great. And then it brings up an important thing. So we've talked about the previous 2 planning scenes in which I expressed frustration that they didn't go through what their plans were. Now, on one hand, as we're reading through it actually happening, there is that little mystery. It's a mini mystery because it's not officially revealed to us, the audience, that this is more or less intentional. And had Sanderson put these ideas out as options earlier, then that ruins that little bit of tension in this scene as it happens. But I'm sure at the same time that Sanderson is competent enough as a writer to be able to maneuver it or have something go slightly awry and build tension that way. These are just thoughts I'm thinking. I'm still enjoying this chapter tremendously. It's just that's a little note that floats in my mind.
Yeah, I think that we would still have. It doesn't have to be an either or situation. And what we get in this chapter, which I enjoy, is, like we said, Ellen trusting Vin's instincts and things like that. And also it shows how they communicate with each other, how they understand each other, and
Yeah.
actually it's mostly Ellen's brilliance, Ellen's EQ basically. He figures out what she's trying to do. That's a really rich part of this chapter that is very enjoyable, and I feel like that would not have been taken out if they had spoken about their plans and things like that. It's the interaction itself is rich.
Yeah. Really, it's one of the highlights of this chapter, in fact.
Mm.
Elend looked toward the door. Straff walked in a few moments later, giving no indication as to whether he had heard Vin. A group of servants entered a few moments later, carrying a large dining table. Vin inhaled sharply. The servants were Ska, Imperial Ska after the old tradition. They were ragged, their clothing made of torn smocks, and they showed bruises from a recent beating. They carried their loads with lowered eyes. Why the reaction, girl? Oh, that's right. You're Ska, aren't you? Pretty dress, notwithstanding. Elend is very kind. I wouldn't let you wear something like that. Or much at all, his tone implied.
That was
gross.
Yeah, that was so gross and so disturbing. Yeah, it makes sense. I guess I'm understanding the kind of mustache twirling that you might have felt. It's more like I'm not cringing at how horrible he is. I'm like, oh, you think that Vin is this stupid that she's not going to realize what you're trying to do here. Like that's what I'm feeling like. It is really bad. Like, oh, look, you've got the reaction, huh? It's because he's underestimated her, though. He's underestimated Elend. He's underestimated everyone's perception because, oh, he's the Tanai. He sees everything. But then you see Vin is doing it so well. Oh.
Vin shot Straff a look, but pulled a little closer to Elend, grabbing his arm. And it's so easy to tell this far in that she is so deliberately playing the scared little girl.
Yeah, and these are all things that she's playing Straff. She knows Straff's noticing these things, so she's giving them to her. She's giving them to him. She's laying them down there. Look, I'm holding on to Elend. Oh no, and like a gasp. Really, Vin, kind of thing. Vin's not going to make any noises.
Exactly. Again, Straff's words were only about posturing. Straff was cruel, but only insofar as it served him. He wanted to make Vin uncomfortable, which he seemed to be doing. Elend frowned, glancing down, and caught a hint of a sly smile on her lips. Breeze has told me that Vin is more subtle with her allomancy than most soothers. Father's good, but for him to pick out her touch... She let him, of course! Elend looked back at Straff, who cuffed one of the Ska servants on their way out. I hope none of them are relatives of yours. They haven't been very diligent lately. I might have to execute a few.
I'm not Ska anymore. I'm a noblewoman.
Straff laughed. He had already dismissed Vin as a threat. He knew she was mistborn. He must have heard she was dangerous, and yet he now assumed she was weak and inconsequential. She's good at this, Elend thought with wonder. It's important to note, though, Straff should listen to Zane on the matter, because I'm pretty sure Zane has told Straff that she shouldn't be underestimated. In fact, didn't he in the POV?
Yeah, he's not by any means as he said, oh, she's okay, she's fine. He's even if he didn't say, I don't remember that's my answer. But even if he didn't say, oh, she's actually pretty good, he didn't say she's bad either. Okay, he didn't say she's nothing and all of that. But what he's done is cancelled out her physical, because it is physical, her allomantic powers because of her character. So it doesn't matter that she's got she's a full mistborn. It's, oh, well, she's stupid. It doesn't matter. She's under Ellen's control, so I can control her too.
Yeah. Servants began to bring in a feast that was impressive, considering the circumstances. As they waited, Straff turned to an aide. Send in Hogel, and tell her to be quick. He seems less reserved than I remember, Elend thought. In the Lord Ruler's day, a good nobleman had been stiff and inhibited in public, though many had turned to extravagant indulgence in private. They would dance and have quiet dinner conversation at the balls, for instance, but enjoy whores and drunkenness in the small hours of night.
Guess what? I've got something that's I think I've got a typo in my book.
Oh?
In the Lord Emperor's day, it says that. In the Lord Emperor's day, a good nobleman had been stiff and inhibited. So that's what it says in my book.
Neat.
Interesting. I don't think that's on purpose.
I wonder how far back that typo goes in the writing timeline. Was the Lord Ruler ever once called the Lord Emperor in
Yeah,
early drafts?
yeah, maybe yeah, exactly. That's true. But then maybe it's just like the empire that they changed from
Oh,
empire,
yeah.
and then it just melded
In the
into
Lord
Lord
Ruler's empire.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
under
that's
the
so
Lord.
neat.
Yeah, exactly. In the first empire, whatever. Or, I mean, in the last empire. Oh, a last because we've got Lord. Yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
it was just I thought that was quite funny. I'm like, is that a new term you're trying to bring in? Yeah. Okay.
Why the beard, father? Last I knew those weren't in fashion. I set the fashion now, boy. Sit. Vin waited respectfully, Elend noticed, until Elend was seated before taking her place. She managed to maintain an air of half-jumpiness. She'd look Straff in the eyes, but always give a reflexive twitch, as if part of her wanted to glance away. Now, tell me why you're here. I thought it was obvious, father. I'm here to discuss our alliance. Straff raised an eyebrow. Alliance? We both just agreed that your life is mine. I don't see a need to ally with you. Perhaps, but there are other factors at play here. I assume that you weren't expecting Set's arrival? Set is of little concern, Straff said, turning his attention to the meal. Big slabs of barely cooked beef. Vin wrinkled her nose, though Ellen couldn't tell whether that was part of her act. So, first off, rare steak, best steak. It's also worth noting Ellen doesn't bring up the Kolos army at all yet in this chapter.
Yeah, I think that's okay. It would be interesting. Do they know? Do you want to let them know that that's something that you keep, in your pocket?
Yeah, good question. I don't
Mm,
know. I would
mm,
hope that they know. I mean, I don't hope that Venture knows, but one would hope if they are a reasonably decent army, they would have scouts up to a week
mm.
away in various directions.
Yeah,
Anyway, Elend cut his steak. A man with an army nearly as large as your own is hardly of little concern, father. Straff shrugged. He'll be of no trouble to me once I have the city walls. You'll turn those over to me as part of our alliance, I assume. And invite Set to attack the city? Yes, together you and I could hold against him, but why go on the defensive? Why let him weaken our fortifications and force this siege to continue until both of our armies are starving? We need to attack him, father. Straff snorted. You think I need your help to do so? You do if you want to beat him with any measure of assured success. We can take him easily, together, but never alone. We need each other. Let's attack, you leading your armies, me leading mine. Why are you so eager? Straff asked, narrowing his eyes. Because I want to prove something. Look, we both know you're going to take Luthadel from me, but if we ride together against Set first, it will appear that I wanted to ally with you all along. I'll be able to give you the city without looking like a complete buffoon. I can spin it that I brought in my father to help us against the army I knew was coming. I turn the city over to you and then become your heir again. We both get what we want, but only once Set is dead. It's a very convincing argument.
yeah. It's a
Uh,
convincing argument, but what I'm focusing on is how he's gone straight to the point with it. Ellen being like, well, he's really been bold with, oh, I've got something to prove here, father, and he's really leaning into his father's perception of him, because what Straff has to believe is that he is all about just the way he looks, and coming off as a fool, and it's actually more about him. He has to make Straff believe that he's being selfish, and that was quite stark to me. The fact that he goes immediately, want to prove something. Like he's not dancing around the issue that he wants to prove something. He's saying it, and I was like, oh, how's Straff gonna? Was that not? Was that too? It wasn't subtle enough that now it looks like he's being. It wasn't subtle enough that it's obvious that he's really trying to manipulate him. That's what I'm trying to say. But Straff is leaning into it. He does really think of Ellen in that way, which is so interesting to see, to behold.
yeah. The only thing that I would add to this
Mhm.
or slightly adjust is I would want Elend to play up the "I will be your heir" bit again. I think it would make Elend
Yeah.
look a little bit more insecure than
Mhm.
he's currently coming off as. He's coming off as very logical,
Mhm.
which I'm sure is great. But if he plays up the air bit, it will show Straff has something that Elend really wants and make Straff feel powerful. And Elend can continue to make the logical argument that if he's the heir, because he doesn't know about Zane,
Mhm.
that Straff can have his venture dynasty continue.
Yeah. And we also he also knows, well, Straff doesn't know that he knows that he was going to be assassinated
Yeah.
before and things like that. So it's working. I agree. I think that's what I mean by this lack of subtlety kind of thing. I wanted him actually to be a bit more emotional
Yeah.
about like, oh well, I'm going to look like a fool kind of thing. It was very logical that he's just like, I look like a fool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he could have even maybe come in a little bit faux cocky.
Yeah.
Like he could have said, and well, I am your heir after all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then
Yes, that's
build
more.
off of that.
Yeah, instead of saying, then I'll be your heir again. It's like that shows that he really just wants to be the heir. That's it. That's what he really wants. But either way, Straff really does underestimate his son so much and dismiss his son so much that he's not gonna look. It does wobble a little bit as we expected, but yeah, he like Ellen's change does shine through a little bit. So yeah, it makes sense.
Straff paused, and Elend could see that his words were having an effect. Yes, think that I'm the same boy you left behind. Eccentric, eager to resist you for silly reasons, and saving face is a very venture thing to do. No, Elend started. No, Straff said again, turning to his meal. That's not how we're going to do this, boy. I'll decide when, or even if, I attack Set. That should have worked, Elend thought. He studied Straff, trying to judge what was wrong. There was a faint hesitance about his father. I need more information, he thought. He glanced to his side to where Vin sat, spinning something idly in her hand, her fork. She met his eyes, then tapped it lightly. Metal! Good idea! He looked over at Straff. You came for the Atium. You don't have to conquer my city to get it. Straff leaned forward. Why haven't you spent it? Nothing brings sharks faster than fresh blood, Father. Spending large amounts of atium would only have indicated for certain that I had it. A bad idea, considering the trouble we took to quash those rumors. There was a sudden motion at the front of the tent, and soon a flustered young girl entered. She wore a ball gown, red, and had her black hair pulled back into a long flowing tail. She was perhaps 15. Gross.
Gross, 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 gross,
Gro-
gross.
You've seen Death Note, right?
Yes.
The opening song theme, one of the characters is in red and the other character is in blue, and that's where my mind went when I figured that Vin is in blue and this girl's in red. um, Nonsensical. I don't think there's any connection between Death Note and this as far as interpretation goes, but I do think that there's interpretation to be made between red and blue. Although, as I say that, I say that with this girl Hoselle in mind, but Straff is clearly evil, and Vin and Elend are clearly good. So,
Yeah, but also just the thing of red is, I mean, you could think of it as seductive and all of that sort of thing that you're supposed to have on a woman, not a
yeah, red is
girl.
also passion and
Yes.
love and all the good things. But I think in this context, specifically in contrast with blue, and given the
Yes.
nature of the scene,
Yeah.
if I were filming this, I would have Straff almost have some sort of red gel lighting, maybe, perhaps lit by candlelight or something, and really accentuate that red. And then Elend, I believe, is dressed in white. So there was a slight difference in our edition when Vin is talking to Elend in the carriage. I don't think you specifically said don't get your white
No,
clothes
yeah.
dirty.
Yeah,
Mine did. So he is wearing white. So I would accentuate that whiteness. Hergel, Straff said, pointing to the chair next to him. The girl nodded obediently, scurrying forward to sit beside Straff. Her face was done up and the dress was low cut. Ellen had little doubt as to her relationship with Straff. Straff smiled and chewed his food, calm and gentlemanly. The girl looked a little like Vin, same almond face, similar dark hair, and same fine features and thin build. It was a statement. I can get one exactly like yours, only younger and prettier. More posturing. It was that moment, that smirk in Straff's eyes, which reminded Ellen more than ever why he hated his father. Perhaps we can make a deal, boy. Deliver the atium to me, and I'll handle Shet. So that line could be that he doesn't know that they know that Zane is Mistborn.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, yeah.
Uh,
But also, just going back, the fact that he has brought this girl in, look, he did ask for her, to come in beforehand. This is still, it makes me go like, Straff is as not as powerful as he is trying to act, because he's still doing these maneuvers and things like that. That's not necessary. You don't have to do that. You don't have to posture if you're in this powerful position, but he's doing extra, it feels like.
yeah. Perhaps we can make a deal, boy. Deliver the atium to me, and I'll handle Shet. Getting it to you will take time. Why? Atium is light. There's a lot of it. Not so much you couldn't pack it on a cart and send it out. It's more complicated than that. I don't think it is. You simply don't want to give it to me. Ellen frowned.
We don't have it.
Straff turned.
We never found it. Kelsier overthrew the Lord Ruler just so he could get that atium, but we never could find out where the metal was. It probably wasn't ever in the city.
So, Straff has a line later, and we'll talk about that line when we get there, but this is intuitive Vin realizing that Straff already knows they don't have it.
It's not a, like I was going to call him Kelsier. Ellen needed more information, right? And so Vin brought up the atium to see how he reacts to the atium. Not so much that, atium is our next negotiating tool. It's more like, no, I need the information. So bring up atium. Let's see how he reacts to that. She's reacted to it. It is quite a big risk to make that decision, but she's trusting Ellen to trust her, actually. It's such a good moment. Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that, Ellen thought. Of course, Vin tended to do things by instinct, much as Kelsier was said to have done. All the planning in the world could go out the window with Vin around, but what she did instead was usually better. Straff sat for a moment. He seemed to believe Vin. So you really have nothing at all to offer me. I need to act weak. Need him to think he can take the city any time, but also think it isn't worth taking right now. He began to tap the table quietly with his index finger, trying to look nervous. Straff thinks we don't have the atium, then he'll be a lot less likely to risk attacking the city. Less gain. That's why Vin said what she did. Vin doesn't know what she's talking about. I've kept the atium hidden, even from her. I'm sure we can arrange something, Father. No, Straff said, now sounding amused. You really don't have it, Zane said. But, well, I didn't believe. Okay, so that's the line right there. Zane said. That means that Zane definitely figured out that they don't have the atium, and Dogasor was present the only time that Vin told someone, Ham, that they didn't have any more atium. Therefore, Dogasor is the imposter.
Yep. That's the final little bit
Smoking
there.
gun.
Yep.
So, yay, full circle on that. Straff shook his head, turning back toward his meal. The girl at his side didn't eat. She sat quietly like the ornament she was expected to be. Oh, yeah, last thing for intuitive Vin, the fact that Straff reveals, that Zane told him they didn't have any atium, she will be able to extrapolate that Dogasor is the imposter from that one sentence.
Yeah, that's oh my gosh, yes. Look, we need her to get time to think about that. It might take her a while, it might not, or if she gets to it immediately, that'll be cool. But I don't want her to just I don't want her to just go and kill Dogasur.
Well, I mean, she can't because he's a Khandra, right? But what if
Mhm.
she begins freezing him out now? So she's been
Mm,
doing all of this warming with him. If she suddenly turns cold with him and keeping him out of meetings and
mm,
not confiding in him anymore, that could be an impetus for him to be like, hey, did something happen? Are we cool? And that'll instigate him wanting to change.
mhm. Yeah. Oh, I'm just thinking now, what would happen if Vin could then, so when you know that somebody is a spy, you can also feed them certain information. So maybe she would want
Exactly.
to do that. So instead of icing him out, but she would still change something.
Yeah.
She would be, it would be noticeable. Either way, still my favorite part of the book is Dorkus and Vin.
Agreed.
Mm.
Straff shook his head, turning back toward his meal. The girl at his side didn't eat. She sat quietly like the ornament she was expected to be. Straff took a long drink of his wine, then let out a satisfied sigh. He looked at his child mistress. Leave us. She immediately did as commanded. You too, Straff said to Vin. Vin stiffened slightly. She looked toward Elend. It's all right, he said slowly. She paused, then nodded. Straff himself was little danger to Elend, and she was a Mistborn. If something went wrong, she could get to him quickly, and if she left, it would do what they wanted, make Elend look less powerful, in a better position to deal with Straff. Hopefully,
I'll just wait outside.
Vin said quietly, withdrawing.
I like the subtlety of her looking at Ellen before she goes. So yes, she's showing Straff that she is scared and she's under control, but she's showing Straff that she's under Ellen's control. It's all about Ellen. So if you control Ellen, you control Vin. She's not a wild card. You can dismiss her. It's fine. Even though she did reveal about the Atium, he would feel like that's a weakness on Ellen's part. He can't control his woman. He can't tell her what to do in terms of, oh no, he's not smart enough to tell her what secrets to keep and what not to. So it's so good. They really are doing the I am weak, I am stupid, but also not. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a good balance.
I really, really did like this chapter quite a lot.
It had to live up to, we had expectations, so it's lived up to it, I'd say.
Yes. And I'm so excited for the blind read we're about to do.
Mm-hmm. That being said, let's get to it, actually.
Yeah, let's get straight to it. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Subscribe to That Darn Kita when you get a chance. She's got a great channel. And see you next week. Thanks,
Bye. It took me the better part of let me do it. It took me the better part of, let me just read it. Hold on. Does yours say, do I say let's go?
Oh, whoop, that's me.
Daisy, your zoomies are really inconvenient right now.